What would happen if the most powerful warship ever built, a floating fortress worth $20 billion, carrying 5,000 American sailors and dozens of nuclear-capable aircraft, suddenly found itself locked in the crosshairs of one of the most sophisticated missile arsenals in the Middle East? What if, in the span of 60 terrifying seconds, every alarm on that ship screamed at once, every radar screen lit up like a Christmas tree, and every sailor on board had to ask themselves the question no one ever wants to answer: is this the day it all goes wrong? Stay with us, because what you are about to hear is not a drill, not a simulation, and not a scene from a Hollywood blockbuster. This is happening right now, and the implications for every man, woman, and child watching this video are more serious than most governments want you to know. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we are diving deep into one of the most alarming and consequential military confrontations in recent memory, a moment that defense analysts are already calling a potential turning point in the global balance of power. Iran has launched a massive, coordinated missile attack directly targeting a United States Navy aircraft carrier, one of the crown jewels of American military supremacy, and the U.S. Navy has responded. But here is what the mainstream headlines are not telling you. And by the time we reach the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why this event matters far beyond the waters of the Persian Gulf. Let us start at the beginning. The USS aircraft carrier in question represents the absolute pinnacle of American naval engineering. At roughly 1,000 feet long and displacing over 100,000 tons of steel, it is not merely a ship. It is a mobile airbase, a command center, a symbol of deterrence that has kept adversaries in check for decades. Its price tag of approximately $20 billion does not even begin to capture its strategic value. Stationed in the region as part of ongoing U.S. force posturing, its presence sends a message that Washington has repeated for generations: American power projects everywhere, at any time, without apology. Iran, however, has spent years preparing for exactly this scenario. Here is where the story gets deeply unsettling, and we need you to pay very close attention to what comes next, because the details of Iran's missile capabilities will shock you. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, known as the IRGC, has quietly constructed what military intelligence experts now describe as one of the most formidable ballistic and cruise missile arsenals on the planet. We are not talking about outdated Cold War-era rockets. We are talking about precision-guided munitions, hypersonic adjacent projectiles, anti-ship ballistic missiles designed specifically to hunt and kill aircraft carriers, and swarm attack systems engineered to overwhelm the most advanced naval defense networks in existence. For years, Western analysts warned that Iran's missile program was becoming a genuine strategic threat. For years, those warnings were met with skepticism, but tonight, those warnings are no longer theoretical. When the attack was launched, it did not come as a single missile fired from a single location. Intelligence sources indicate that this was a coordinated multi-vector strike, meaning missiles were launched from multiple sites at multiple angles, utilizing a combination of ballistic trajectories and low-flying cruise missiles designed to slip beneath radar coverage and confuse defensive systems. This is a tactic that military planners call saturation attack, and it is specifically engineered to overwhelm the layered defense systems that protect American carrier strike groups. The goal is not to guarantee a hit with every missile. The goal is to fire enough simultaneously that even a defense system operating at perfect efficiency cannot intercept them all. And now you need to understand what was standing between those missiles and 5,000 American lives. The carrier was not alone. It never is. A U.S. carrier strike group is one of the most formidable defensive formations ever assembled. Surrounding the carrier are guided missile cruisers and destroyers equipped with the Aegis combat system, arguably the most advanced integrated air and missile defense technology in operational use anywhere in the world. Aegis can track hundreds of targets simultaneously, engage multiple threats at once, and coordinate defensive fire across the entire strike group in a matter of milliseconds. Beneath the surface, attack submarines sweep the waters for threats. In the air, carrier-based aircraft and electronic warfare platforms create a protective bubble that extends hundreds of miles in every direction. But here is what keeps admirals awake at night. And here is what Iran has known for years. No defense system is perfect. Every system has gaps, saturation thresholds, and moments of vulnerability. The entire philosophy behind Iran's saturation missile doctrine is to find those thresholds and exceed them. Fire enough missiles fast enough from enough directions, and the mathematics of interception start working against the defender. This is not speculation. This is doctrine written into Iranian military strategy, openly discussed in IRGC publications, and practiced in exercises that Western intelligence has monitored for over a decade. Tonight, that doctrine was put to the test against the most powerful naval force on Earth. We are going to tell you exactly how the Navy responded, but first, there is something about the timing of this attack that you absolutely need to understand, because it changes everything about how we should interpret what is happening. The geopolitical context surrounding this event is not incidental. It is essential. Tensions in the Persian Gulf region have been escalating for months, driven by a complex web of proxy conflicts, economic pressure campaigns, and strategic miscalculations on multiple sides. Iran has watched as American carrier groups have moved into position with increasing frequency. It has watched as sanctions have tightened their grip on the Iranian economy. It has watched as its regional proxies have come under sustained military pressure. And Iranian military doctrine, as analysts have long noted, does not favor passive waiting. Iranian strategy is built on the concept of forward defense. The idea that the best way to protect Iranian interests is to strike first, strike hard, and force adversaries to recalculate the cost of confrontation. What that means for you watching this right now is this attack was not impulsive. It was planned, it was calculated, and it was executed with a level of operational sophistication that demands a serious response from Washington, one that the entire world is now watching for. The U.S. Navy's response began within seconds of the first missile launch being detected. Here is how it unfolded, and the technology involved is nothing short of extraordinary. The moment Iranian missile launches were detected, likely by a combination of satellite-based infrared sensors, airborne early warning aircraft, and the Aegis radar networks of the surrounding destroyers, the carrier strike group shifted to full combat readiness. Battle stations were called. The Aegis systems went into engagement mode, calculating intercept trajectories for each detected incoming threat. SM-3 and SM-6 interceptor missiles, weapons capable of hitting targets at speeds exceeding Mach 3.5, at altitudes ranging from sea level to the upper atmosphere, were fired in rapid succession. Electronic warfare systems activated, flooding the electromagnetic spectrum with jamming signals designed to confuse missile guidance systems and cause them to veer off course. Simultaneously, carrier-based aircraft already airborne began repositioning to extend the defensive perimeter, while strike packages were placed on immediate alert for retaliatory action. The nuclear-powered carrier itself executed evasive maneuvers, a sobering reminder that even a 100,000-ton warship must dance when missiles are in the air. What happened in those minutes represents the most intense real-world test of American naval missile defense systems in the modern era. And the results, we have to be very precise about this, are not simply a matter of whether missiles hit or missed. The results carry implications that will reshape military planning in every major capital on Earth. And we are going to tell you what those implications are right after we walk you through what defense sources are revealing about the damage assessment. Here is where the picture becomes truly alarming. While official statements from the Pentagon are carefully worded, as they always are in the immediate aftermath of such events, what defense and intelligence analysts are piecing together from multiple sources tells a far more complex story than the official narrative suggests. The sheer scale of the Iranian missile salvo has exposed the outer limits of what even the most sophisticated naval defense network can reliably intercept in real time. Not every missile was destroyed before reaching its intended target zone. The carrier strike group was tested at a level of intensity it has not experienced in combat conditions in living memory, and the data generated by that engagement will be studied by every military on Earth for years to come. China is watching. Russia is watching. North Korea is watching. And every one of those powers is drawing its own conclusions about what today means for the credibility of American naval deterrence going forward. That is not an opinion. That is the cold logic of great power competition, and it is playing out in real time as you watch this video. Now, let us talk about the American response, because what the Navy does next is not just a military question. It is a strategic, diplomatic, and potentially civilization-defining question. The United States has multiple options available, and each one carries consequences that cascade far beyond the immediate battlefield. A targeted retaliatory strike against the missile launch sites within Iran would send an unmistakable message of resolve, but it risks triggering a broader escalation that neither side may be able to control. A more restrained response, cyber operations, increased sanctions, diplomatic condemnation through international channels, risks being read as weakness by Tehran and by the other adversaries watching this confrontation unfold, and a large-scale military campaign against Iranian military infrastructure, while devastatingly effective in the short term, opens a Pandora's box of regional escalation that could draw in Hezbollah, Houthi forces, Iranian-backed militias across Iraq and Syria, and potentially reshape the entire Middle East in ways that would reverberate for generations. There is no easy answer here. There is no option that does not carry enormous risk. What we can tell you, what the history of these confrontations tells us, is that the decisions made in the next 72 hours will define the trajectory of American foreign policy, Middle Eastern stability, and global security for years to come. The men and women making those decisions right now in secure rooms in Washington and in the command centers of the 6th and 5th Fleet carry a weight that most of us will never fully appreciate. But there is another dimension to this story that most coverage is missing entirely, and it may be the most important part of all: the technology gap question. For decades, American military supremacy has rested on a foundational assumption that the qualitative edge of U.S. weapons systems, their precision, their sophistication, their integration, would always be sufficient to deter or defeat any adversary's attempt to use mass and numbers to overcome American defenses. That assumption has been the bedrock of U.S. defense strategy since the end of the Cold War. It is the reason why America fields a relatively small number of extraordinarily expensive, extraordinarily capable platforms rather than enormous numbers of cheaper, simpler ones. Iran's missile doctrine, perfected over 20 years of intensive development and field tested in proxy conflicts across the region, is a direct challenge to that assumption. It says, we cannot match American quality, so we will overwhelm American quantity. We cannot outbuild your ships, so we will build enough missiles to saturate your defenses. We cannot win a fair fight, so we will make the fight unfair. And tonight, the world watched to see whether that theory holds water. The answer to that question, whatever it turns out to be, will echo through every defense ministry on Earth. We are now entering the most critical phase of this crisis, the phase where words, posture, and signaling matter as much as weapons. Iran will be watching every statement from the Pentagon, every movement of American forces, every congressional reaction, looking for signals about American willingness to escalate. American allies in the region, Israel, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, will be recalibrating their own security calculations in real time, deciding what this event means for their own exposure to Iranian military power. NATO partners in Europe will be absorbing the implications for their own deterrence frameworks. And in Beijing and Moscow, strategic planners are running scenarios. This is what a genuine inflection point looks like, not the dramatic turning points of history books. Clean and obvious in retrospect, but a moment of terrifying ambiguity where the decisions made by a handful of people under enormous pressure will determine which way the scales tip. What does it mean for the ordinary person watching this right now? It means that the world you live in is less stable than it was yesterday. It means that the global order built on American military supremacy, an order that, for all its flaws, has prevented great power war for 80 years, is being tested in ways that are visible and measurable and real. It means that the men and women serving aboard that carrier and the families waiting for them at home are living through something that no amount of training fully prepares you for. And it means that the decisions made by leaders you elected in a system you participate in will shape what comes next. That is why this story matters, not as spectacle, not as a geopolitical chess game played by distant powers, but as a moment that connects directly to the world you live in, the security you depend on, and the future you are passing on to the next generation. We will continue to bring you every verified development as this situation evolves. We will cut through the noise, challenge the official narratives where the evidence demands it, and give you the context and analysis you need to understand as what is actually happening, not what governments want you to believe is happening. The carrier strike group remains at combat readiness. U.S. forces across the region have been elevated to their highest alert status. Diplomatic channels are lit up around the clock. And somewhere in the Persian Gulf right now, sailors who signed up to defend their country are standing watch over a situation that none of us, not the admirals, not the analysts, not the presidents, can fully predict. Stay alert, stay informed, because in moments like this, an informed public is not just a democratic ideal, it is a national security necessity. Do not let anyone tell you this does not affect you. Do not let the distance of geography make you complacent. What happens in those waters in the coming hours and days will ripple outward in ways that reach every corner of the world. This is not the end of the story. This is the beginning of a new and dangerous chapter, and you need to be paying attention. If this analysis opened your eyes to something the mainstream media is not telling you, smash that like button right now. Share this video with everyone in your network who needs to understand what is at stake, and subscribe so you do not miss a single update as this crisis develops. Turn on your notifications because the next development could come at any moment. And when it does, we will be here to break it down for you before anyone else. Stay sharp, stay ready. The world just changed and we are watching it together.